Hey guys, Matt here from EBMX. Super excited to show you guys the X-9000 install video. I know everybody's been waiting a long time for this product. Not going to do a full review on it in this video. This is just to help you guys get it installed on your bikes. We'll do some other content to help talk through all the different features and parts of it. But just to walk through what's in the kit when you guys get it. This is the final version of the prototype one that I have. Very slightly different than what you're going to have in your final box, but we just need to get this video done for you guys at the moment. We'll make a new one down the track. So you've got your controller, your X-9000 with your heatsink on the front of it, and all the other pieces that come in the kit are these. So you're going to have this cord which has loose wires on the end of it. This is something you probably won't be using on a Sur-Ron or Talaria, at least for right now. This is a 12-volt accessory cable. So there's a 12-volt DC-DC converter built into this. All those outputs are programmable through the app. You can use it for things like coolant pumps, headlights, all that sort of stuff. So we've given you the cord. We have the wiring diagram for it, and you guys can use that as you need. It's going to come with that end sealed up for that cable though, because you don't really need this for the install on a Sur-Ron or Talaria. The other things that come in there are you're going to have two of these cables that look like this. One is going to match up with the Sur-Ron connectors, and one's going to match up with the Talaria connectors, and this guy is obviously going to fill the other cord on there. All right, you've also got a cord like this. This is you guys are going to have a 4-to-1. This is a 2-to-1 cord. This is just your accessories, basically. This is the master side of this is going to plug into your cable here, and this is going to split off for different accessories. So you're going to be using this for the display and also for the regen thumb throttle. You guys will have 2 extra cords on yours. This one is a 2. You guys are going to have 4 on yours. The 2 extra ones are for brake sensors. You don't need those. We've already worked into the brake sensors that are on the bike already. So that's that cable. You are also going to have a Bluetooth piece like this. So we have an external Bluetooth. It's not built into here, so you can disconnect it if you ever want the bike to be not able to be hooked up to anything. This is your Bluetooth. This is your display. So this is an SW102 display, similar to an egg rider display. We've built our own firmware for this to do some pretty cool stuff. We'll talk through some of that later. That's going to plug into that extension, that 4-to-1 extension you have, and then you're also going to have your thumb throttle here. So we'll talk through the thumb throttle and its features later on as well. The last thing you're going to have in your box there is you're going to have a card come like this. On the back of this, it's got a whole bunch of links. If you follow those links, it'll get you to frequently asked questions, it'll get you to the install videos, it'll get you to everything that you need, and set up your warranty and all that sort of stuff. So with that said, let's get this thing onto a bike. All right, first thing we're going to do is we need to just get all this stock stuff off the bike. So this is a bone stock bike. I've already pulled the battery out. When you pull the battery out, just make sure you lift your lid up. Make sure the circuit breaker or the air switch that's inside is flipped off. And then you go ahead, pull your power cable off, pull your comms cable off your battery, take that battery out, put it somewhere safe, and you're ready to get into taking this motor controller off. So when you do this, make sure you keep all of your hardware. All this hardware, minus a couple of little bolts, is going to be used on the install of the X-9000. So just make sure you set it off to the side. It's going back in the same locations that it came out of. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take off the bottom 2 brackets there, bottom 2 bolts. So just grab a 4mm Allen key and get these threaded off. One easy place to stick all these so you don't lose them is just right inside the battery tray. There's a really good spot for them. Just sit right down in there. That side, I'll get this other side. Okay, now at the top of the controller here, you've just got a little plastic guard underneath the horn. So go ahead and get that plastic off. Same thing, these are a little bit smaller bolts, so just keep them off to the side. that down somewhere. All right, now you've got access to the top two bolts, and we can get those things loosened off now. Keep hold of these as we take them off. All right, now your controller should be loose here. We'll go ahead and we'll take off the plastic guards that are on the side underneath the controller, sort of hiding the phase cables down here. And there's two Phillips head screws on the bottom of this guard that just screw right into the plastic there. Take those guys out, keep them to the side. All right, now we should be able to take this plastic guard out. Like that, set him down. And now we can start accessing some of these cables. Now, you're gonna have some of these cables tied up in here. They might seem kind of tight up in here. Go ahead and we'll loosen these two side bolts and we'll be able to slide this whole center frame area back. We'll need to have that open when we're putting the X-9000 cables up in there, just to give us the room to do that. Okay, now that we've got all that stuff off, probably want to leave the lid lifted up. You're gonna kind of be working in and out of this whole area here. You can now pull back the middle. Got all these cords have fallen out of here now. So we're gonna go ahead and we're just gonna start unplugging some of these cables. Everything that's plugged into this main harness coming from the controller is gonna need to be unplugged because we're taking this out. So we can take that one out. We can take this one out, and we can also take that last triangle one out. Now you can see down at the phase cables and the power cables, we're gonna need to loosen all of these off as well. So same thing, just get in here with your 5mm and get them all loosened up and unscrew them. All right, now we've got all the cables off and we've got our motor controller free. We'll go ahead and set this stock one off to the side, and we will grab the X-9000 and get ready to start hooking that up. So we have our X-9000 here. The top of it is going to mirror the top of this controller. They basically look pretty much the same. That's the top. The X goes upright, and it's going to get bolted in just like that. And all these cables, we're gonna work our way up behind there. So first thing we need to do is get all the phase cables hooked on and the power leads hooked on. On the back of yours, you're going to see it's labeled with the colors that correspond to your phase cables and a positive and negative lead. So go ahead and make sure you match those up: blue, green, yellow, positive and negative. So the way I'm standing here with mine, closest to me, I'm going to have positive, then I'm going to have yellow, then I'm going to have green, then I'm going to have blue, and then I'm going to have the negative cable coming off the side. We'll throw a picture up there so you guys can see that exactly. So when you start getting these attached up, phase cables are probably easiest to hook up first, so I'm just going to go ahead and start getting these into place. Just get them all loosely in place first, and then we can get them all snugged down later on. So we've got our yellow on. Green's going to jump into the middle here. All right, now once you've got them started in there, grab your wrench and get them tightened down. These are going into solid blocks inside the controller, so they should be nice and sturdy. But that being said, this isn't an area where you want to use an impact wrench, but you can just use your Allen key or your Allen wrench and just go ahead and snug all those down so they don't come loose. But don't use an impact driver, it's not necessary. And we'll get the positives and negatives put on here. Now with this, depending on how your harness sits, you may need to take off a little bit of tape that's on the stock harness, and you may need to just sort of help spread these apart a little bit. Sometimes it helps to just give a little cut here if that's needed. If you're going to make a little bit of a cut just to help with the cable guard on here, just make sure that you're really careful about this and that you hold these apart as you cut. You definitely don't want to cut into your power cables at all. Once you've started it, then you should be able to pull it a little bit further apart if you need. You don't need a tremendous amount, but you just want to make sure these cables are going to sit and then run up the controller like that. So we'll get these guys put into place. You also want to make sure these cables are going to be flowing up against the controller. Just make sure when you tighten them that you don't have them sort of face down or away or off to the side. You want them to face up, which seems a little bit awkward while you have it in this position, but makes a lot of sense once you turn the controller on an upward angle as you're doing the install. So now we also need to get some of the connections hooked on there. So we're going to grab the adapter that we have for the Suron. So that's the one that's going to have a black plug and a white plug on it. And we're just going to go ahead and get this side of it hooked up. These all have notches for the right way for them to go together. And then you're going to bring the top piece over and screw them on nice and tight. So these are really nice waterproof connectors. When they're put together, you should never have to worry about water getting in here and causing any sort of issues. So that's hooked together. Now you've got some length on here, and this is going to go up into those stock connections that we took off of the controller. So there were 3 we undid. This triangle one is not going to be used, and these other 2 are going to be used. So just go ahead and clip these together now. If you're pushing these together and they feel like something is wrong, it probably is. Go ahead and double check the pins and make sure they're nice and clean and not bent. They should clip right together and you should hear a snap. So if you're not hearing that, don't go ahead and force them together. Same thing with this one. It should just snap together just like that. We need to get a few other cables here put together now. So we're gonna grab, you guys will have the 4-to-1. I've got the 2-to-1 here. Again, this is only going to go into one spot. It's the larger of the smaller connectors. And just find the notch where it goes together. Go ahead and notch that together. And the last piece that goes on here is this Bluetooth connection. I might just leave this one off for just a moment while we get all the rest of this together, and then we'll put that in place. To make sure we don't use this stock connection that was used on top of the battery, if you plug this in during your install, you're going to have some weird issues happen. You no longer need this in place once you have the X-9000 controller. So I'm just going to cut the cable tie that holds that to the power leads, and then we're going to end up tucking this back inside. Another thing we're going to do just to give us some more room is we're going to loosen off the top 2 bolts up here by your ignition barrel, and we're going to free that area up to work with just so we can get cables and everything in there. So just take out these 2. Whenever I take this off, just so I don't mess up where the bolts go, I always make sure I just put these screws right back in place. So that should pop right out, and just go ahead and set these screws back in place just so you don't lose them or misplace them. Okay, and that'll just give us a bit more room to play with up in top where all the cables need to go. Now what we want to do is we want to basically just pass this cable up in there. So this one can be left off sort of to the side here, and we're going to sort out exactly where it goes after we get the controller started.
All right, this is Bruno Carl here. Quite a few people, they figured out that it's very hard to pack cables inside this area here in the bike. Okay, so normally all the cables are bunched up with the bike wiring harness, everything is up there, and there's also room for more connections down here. Okay, so there's more sensors, motor sensor, the phase wire connection, kickstand, lots of things going on down here as well. So it's actually a lot easier and less painful during the installation process to send some of these cables down here, the bulky area of the cables like this, and then send just what you need back up there. Okay, so you don't introduce more cables in the area that's already busy. And yeah, so that's gonna make your life a lot easier. You might shave the installation time in like by half, okay? Because that's the most painful part of the setup. It's showing the difference between the Talaria cable and the surround cable. The surround cable's got the black connector, and the Talaria is just easy to remember. Technically, these two connectors could go together like this, okay? So they're identical connectors, male and female, surround different connectors, okay? Very easy to remember that way. That's it. Alrighty.
Now when you hold the controller up, you're going to be using these pre-existing holes that are drilled in the side of it, and the top mount, these bolts are going to go into this guy up here. Now this is the bracket that holds the tilt sensor, so you won't be able to get the top ones in until you've pushed that back into place. But we're going to go ahead and start with just putting a bolt in the side. Now in your guys' kit, you're going to notice that if you were to try to thread in the whole the screws that went on the side, they might sort of hit the bottom of the controller. We've put a few little washers in your guys' kit, and you're just going to put that washer up towards the head of this bolt to use it if you run into that issue. So that's what I was talking about there, how that doesn't fit. With mine, I'm just going to end up packing it out with some washers because I don't have those spacers that you guys all have in your kit yet. So I'm going to go ahead and get out the Bluetooth piece, and I'm just going to hook that in now to the loose connector so that I can pass that up through. So this guy, same way as all the other ones, has one way it can go in. Just be careful when you're putting them together. There's two arrows that should line up with each other. Make sure those go together. And now we'll go ahead and we'll pass this through. So it's going to come up. It's going to come out through the top slot up where we took that key barrel out of. And leave it up there for now. And now the next step before we look at putting the top in, we need to get this, this whole tray slid back into place. And we need to arrange the cables that we have up here how we want them. So with that 4-to-1 connector, that guy again, he's going to come out the top up here as well. So we can pull that up out the top for now. And we'll come around the back so you can see a little easier here what I'm doing. We have all of these other connectors in here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take, this is the stock connector. That can kind of get folded up and it's going to live kind of in the back. It's never going to be used again once you have the X-9000 controller. Same thing with this other plug. Get that in a nice safe spot. If you guys are riding in really wet areas, you can put some heat shrink over this, some tape over this, just to make sure nothing gets in there. I don't really need that where I'm riding at the moment. And now once everything is sort of nice and tidy, in a good spot where it can be pushed up into this cavity here, we're going to look at pushing this whole piece forward. Alright. So once we have these loosely put into place, that just knows that we have this back plate in place, then we can look at installing the front part of the controller. One thing we need to keep in mind and just be wary of and cautious of is when you're installing the top of this controller, you need to make sure there's nothing that's in the way of this top bracket. That's keeping that face clean on here and clean on here. So you might have your fuse hanging down, a few wires. They can all go to the side. There's plenty of room on the sides. Just make sure they are off on the side though, before you push things into their sort of final place, or you may be pinching a wire, and you don't want to be pinching any wires when you install things. So now we're just going to use the same hardware we used before to put the top of the controller into these top brackets up here. This job can be a little easier if you have someone to give you a hand sometimes. Be a little bit hard by yourself. If you're by yourself, I'll show you a trick you can do as well. Pop that. All right, if you're by yourself doing this and you're sort of struggling to use all of your hands to hold things in place, as long as you make sure that your cables are all routed behind here, you can grab this with your hands and you can press it together. Then it's safe enough to use a clamp like this just to help hold things in place so you can get your bolt holes lined up, and makes this part of the install a lot easier at times. Then you're not worrying about holding things at the same time as you're worrying about screwing them in. So we just go ahead and do that. And then we've got the top of it in. All right, now that we've got the controller fully bolted up down here, all the cabling and everything is okay, we're going to come up to the top and make sure that our cables that we've put inside of here are going to leave enough room for this guy to go back on, and these pieces that set underneath for the USB and the ignition. We're also going to have a look at the stock display and then work out our cable routing before we put everything together. So first thing you're going to do, go ahead and we're going to take this display off, and we're just going to remove the display completely because we're replacing it with that SW102 display. So we'll get these unscrewed and take them off. Now when you've loosened that up, you can get to, we only need to take this top piece of the display out, so it's two more little screws to take out to get this guy off. There's one, there's the other. Okay, so this should, this display slides straight up when it comes off. Like that. And then you're just going to trace this wire down and take that out of the harness. So you have to loosen off a couple of these rubber clips, trace that down where it goes inside, and we will just unplug that. It's no longer needed. So if I can just find where that goes inside of here, there's the plug. And just disconnect this. Okay. All right, so we've got that out of the way. This display is no longer going to be used. It's an option to keep this this other one on here. You can if you want to. You don't need to. The reason you would keep it on is if you want a physical forward and reverse switch. Pushing it forward is bike going forward. Pushing that down, which used to be eco mode, is bike going in reverse. I'm going to remove it because when I install the SW102 display, we've got 3 forward gears and then we have a reverse gear built into that as well. But you might want to put it somewhere else on your bars if you want that physical switch and you don't want to just toggle on the SW102 display. But I'm going to remove it just to give me a little more room on my bars to put my other display exactly in the location that I want to have it in. So I will track this plug down as well and take that off. So again, an optional one, so hold on to it. You may want to use that one later on and you'll just plug it back into the same spot. All right, with those taken off, we've cleaned up the bars a little bit, and now we're going to look at putting the other pieces on that we have. So we have these two. We've got the SW102 display and we've got the thumb regen. For how I do it, I normally put my thumb regen pretty close up on the bars here. So I put it right next to the grip. It's something that I want to reach quite often. And it's a pretty handy feature. It's basically like a rear brake that's electronic and it's fully adjustable. So just work that into place. Keep these wires loose for the moment. This is exactly how they come stock. I normally shift my brake levers over a little bit. I'm going to do that again just to get it for when I'm squeezing on one finger to have it where I want, but also because I normally want to put my SW102 display right next to that. So it makes it easy if you can just go ahead and shift your brake lever over a little bit, free up a little bit of room, and then everything fits in there quite nicely. Okay. All right, now just get your hand in and have a feel, have sort of a run through of the travel of the thumb throttle to see where you would want it to bottom out. Once you have that comfortable, and once you have your display in a location where you're happy with it, just make sure you don't put them too close together or you have it at a different angle. If you were riding along and you hit this display, you'd be changing power modes while you may be trying to use the thumb throttle. So just make sure that you're comfortable with the arrangement you have, and then go ahead and tighten things in place so they won't move. And I've lost my 3mm Allen key somewhere. Here we are. Once I have those in place, I'll go ahead, I'll put my brake lever back up to the height that I want it at and get that tightened in place as well. Okay, now we've got these loose wires. We just want to make sure we run these in a nice fashion, as clean as we can. One of these rubber guys you took off of the cables before, I would go ahead and put that around around this bundle of cables now that we've taken those 2 cables off for the stock piece. This will just help keep everything sort of in an organized fashion. And will come, same as all these other cables, right in between the frame and the forks there. Now you want to make sure when you're installing these that you have enough room that when you turn the bars side to side, you're not going to pull anything out of place. There is enough room, if you've set it up the way that I've set it up, that these connectors can sit all the way down inside of the top piece here, which really is the best location for them. If you've gone and you've upgraded your bars to wider bars, all you're going to have to do is just, these cables will just have to be out a little bit. Your bars are going to be wider, riser bars, and it'll be a little different. For this stock configuration though, works really well to just have them tucked down inside. So you'll go ahead and you'll connect up. There's a male and female on each, green with green, yellow with yellow, and get those put together. Again, making sure you line up the arrows and the notch marks, and those connect up. So push your cables into place where you want to have them. That's where mine are going to sit, everything down inside. And take these screws off. And now you're going to go ahead and just get this top plate put back down into place. There may be a little bit of pushing wires around inside. Just try to massage things as gently as you can. You don't want to damage any wires, but at the same time there is a bit going on in there, so you may have to push things around a little bit. As well, these top plates, we make an aftermarket one because these ones often break, so just be careful when you're putting these bolts in that you're not going to over tighten them. You can crack right through the plastic on them quite easily. All right, snug these down a little bit. And we've got one more extra one of these plastic little rubber ties that we had before. Not really needed here. I'm just going to throw it around here with the other one. These are something that's pretty handy on the trail sometimes to use if you have a cable tie somewhere. They're kind of like a reusable cable tie that can hold stuff in place. Double check everything can move back and forth. Nothing is bound up, nothing is hitting. And now we're ready to get a battery put in there, and we'll turn it on and run you guys through some of the features of how this display works with this controller. All right guys, now we've got everything installed. We're ready to move on to the last step of just setting things up. So if you go ahead and flip your breaker on, get your key, turn it on, your display is going to come on. This over here. It'll show up with an X, and then it'll show you a display. Battery will be blinking. It'll pick up a voltage, and then depending on what battery you have and how things are configured, there could be an error that shows up just like that. So we'll provide you guys with the error sheet on what that means. Error 02 is under voltage. So this display is probably set up, this bike is programmed right now for a 72 volt battery, and we obviously have a 60 volt battery in here. So that voltage is falling outside of the voltage range that we want, and we just need to update that. The best way we're going to be able to do that is with the EBMX app. So it's free to download. You'll go ahead and you'll download the app. And I'm just going to jump into it and quickly show you guys how to do the initial setup. So here's the app. You're going to see your Bluetooth signature show up here. You'll go ahead and just tap on that. And now this is the display that comes up. You can see in the top here that there's a warning that's on. If I touch that, it says under voltage. So probably best to read the whole guide for the app, but for the meantime, for this install video, just get things going, I'll show you real quickly. You're going to hit this tab over here, which is going to put you into all the settings. You're going to tap on General, and then you're going to just have a look at this setup. So make sure you have the right bike. So Sur-Ron Ultra B, or wish it was an Ultra B, it's not yet. Sur-Ron Light B, or Talaria, and then you can go from the motor type, which you just have a regular Sur-Ron motor in here right now. Now battery type, stock battery, which is a 60 volt battery, is 16S. So we're going to say OK on 16. Now battery, we have this set up and pre-programmed with a lot of different types of batteries. You're just going to choose what you have. So this is a stock. It's not a stock bypass. It's just a stock Sur-Ron battery. I'm going to click OK. And now I'm just going to hit save and confirm. Once I've done that, the display pops back up. Everything's happy. It knows what its voltage range should be. It knows what power limits and stuff should be. That's built into the app as well. I'm going to do a full video to show you guys the setup and how this app works down the track. But this was just getting you up and running and getting the bike installed, double checking everything is working. Something else to note quickly on the display, if you want to change between your race mode settings and your street mode settings, you have to do that within 10 seconds of turning the key on to get into the menu. How you do that is, I'll shut the bike off quickly. Now I've turned the bike on and it turns on. Within the first 10 seconds, you have to hold your M button down. If you hold that down, you go into the menu. And inside the menu, you can do the same thing you can do on the app with selecting the battery type. The temperature and the speed, you can select these whether you want Celsius or Fahrenheit. The speed, miles per hour, kilometers per hour. You can put a password, and then you can also turn on or off the kickstand sensor and the brake sensors. So the brake sensors will work with all the stock wiring. Same thing as the kickstand sensor there. Now, what I was showing you before is the mode here. So at the very top of your settings is mode. If you click on mode, you go street or race. Now, street mode, inside of each mode, there's 3 different power levels. So if we click on street mode and then we hit exit, now we'll be in street mode at the top here. Now, this is set up currently to turn on in whatever mode you have it left off in. In the app, you can switch that as well to have it power up whatever mode you want. You can set speed limits and all sorts of other things, which is why there's 2 different modes. We have the bike in mode 0 right now. If we're in mode 0 and we try the throttle, that's neutral. So it's not going to go anywhere. From here, if you were to go down, you go into reverse. You're going to spin backwards. If you go up into mode 1, 2, or 3, those are all positive forward gears. So there's mode 1. From there, we need to probably go in depth and look at the app and all the settings and the adjustments, and we'll save that for another video. Hopefully you guys got to this stage, everything went in smoothly, and you're ready to start having to play with your new controller. Let us have your feedback. Look forward to hearing from everybody. Thank you.